The cold wind blew through the streets of New York, as Daniel leaned against the graffiti-covered wall of an alleyway. His hands were buried in his worn-out hoodie, and his sharp eyes scanned the bustling city around him. To most, he was just another street kid, forgotten, invisible. But Daniel had something most people underestimated: a mind as sharp as a razor. At just 17, he had survived more than most adults. He had learned the ins and outs of the law, not from textbooks, but from experience, watching, listening, and absorbing everything around him. He knew the system better than the people who ran it. And now, that knowledge was about to be tested in the most unexpected way. One evening, Daniel was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The sound of police sirens filled the air, and within minutes, officers surrounded him. "Put your hands where we can see them," a cop shouted. Daniel froze, his mind racing. He hadn't done anything wrong, but he knew how this worked. Someone had committed a robbery nearby, and he fit the description: young hoodie, alone. They threw him into the back of a squad car without much explanation. The ride to the station was silent, except for the occasional crackle of the police radio. Daniel didn't argue. He knew better, but he also knew one thing: if they thought they could pin this on him, they had another thing coming. The next morning, he found himself standing in a courtroom. Judge Robert Simmons, a man known for his strict rulings, sat behind his desk, scanning Daniel with a tired expression. "Another street kid who thinks he's above the law," the judge muttered under his breath. The prosecutor, a confident-looking woman in a sharp suit, stood up. "Your Honor, the state will prove that the defendant, Daniel Carter, was involved in the robbery of a convenience store on 5th Avenue. Witnesses place him at the scene, and we have security footage that we believe confirms his involvement." Daniel remained silent as his public defender, a young lawyer, fresh out of law school, shifted nervously in her seat. She barely glanced at him before mumbling, "Your Honor, my client." But Daniel placed a hand on her arm, stopping her. "Your Honor, I'd like to represent myself." The room fell silent. The judge raised an eyebrow. "You what?" "I'd like to defend myself." A murmur spread through the courtroom. The prosecutor smirked. "This should be interesting." Daniel took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Your Honor, I'd like to question the prosecution's evidence. You claim there's security footage placing me at the scene of the crime. Have you reviewed this footage in its entirety?" The prosecutor hesitated. "The footage clearly shows." "With all due respect," Daniel interrupted, "does the footage show me committing the crime, or does it just show someone wearing a hoodie similar to mine? Can the prosecution definitively prove it's me?" The prosecutor glanced at her notes. "Well, the witness testimony, right?" Daniel nodded. "Let's talk about the witnesses. How many people identified me?" The prosecutor cleared her throat. Two people in a panic, in a poorly lit store, trying to recall a suspect under stress." Daniel turned to the jury. "Studies have shown that eyewitness testimony can be unreliable. People make mistakes, especially in high-stress situations." The judge leaned forward, now fully engaged. "Go on." "Furthermore," Daniel continued, "I was arrested miles away from the crime scene with no stolen goods on me, no weapon, nothing linking me to the actual crime. The only evidence against me is a blurry video, and 2 scared witnesses. Your Honor, if this is the best the prosecution has, I move for a dismissal." Silence. The prosecutor opened her mouth but closed it again. She knew Daniel had just dismantled her case. Judge Simmons rubbed his chin. "Do you have anything further to add, counselor?" The prosecutor sighed. "No, Your Honor." The judge took a deep breath and glanced at Daniel. There was something different about this kid. He wasn't just another street punk, he was sharp, calculated. Finally, he spoke. "Case dismissed." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Daniel exhaled slowly. He had won. But more importantly, he had proven something: he wasn't just some forgotten street kid. He was someone who could stand up for himself in a world that constantly tried to tear him down. As he walked out of the courthouse, a familiar voice called his name. He turned to see an older man in a well-fitted suit approaching him. "That was impressive," the man said. "Have you ever considered law school?" Daniel smirked. "I think I just passed my first test."